Welcome to Bible Quizzes. There are 80 questions in this quiz. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. In Romans, Paul mentions a man whose faith was accounted as righteousness. Who was he? Moses, Abraham, David, Elijah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abraham, Romans 4:3. For what does the scripture say? Abraham believed God and it was accounted to him for righteousness. 2. According to 1 Corinthians, what is the last enemy that will be destroyed? Satan, sin, death, Antichrist. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is death. 1 Corinthians 15:26. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death. 3. In 2 Corinthians, Paul says that Satan disguises himself as what? A roaring lion, a false prophet, an angel of light, a prince. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is an angel of light, 2 Corinthians 11:14, and no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. 4. Which book of the Bible is the only one that mentions God laughing? Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Psalms. Psalms 2:4 says, "The one enthroned in heaven laughs, the Lord scoffs at them." This shows God's reaction to the rebellion of nations. 5. Which book in the Bible contains the most questions? Job, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Job. Job contains over 300 questions, more than any other book. Many of these questions are rhetorical and deal with the nature of suffering and God's justice. 6. What is the only book in the Bible that does not contain the word love? 3 John, Nahum, Philemon, Obadiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nahum. Nahum, a prophecy about Nineveh's destruction, does not mention love, focusing instead on God's judgment. 7. Which book of the Bible contains a reference to dinosaurs or large creatures like Behemoth and Leviathan? Genesis, Ezekiel, Psalms, Job. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Job. Job 40:15-24 describes Behemoth, a massive creature, and Job 41 details Leviathan, a fire-breathing sea creature, often interpreted as a symbolic or literal. 8. Which gospel contains no parables? Matthew, Luke, Mark, John. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is John. John does not include any parables. Instead, it focuses on long discourses and deep theological teachings from Jesus. 9. What is the only book in the Bible that has 3 chapters but only 1 verse in the 3rd chapter? Habakkuk, 2 John, Haggai, Philemon. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Haggai. Haggai has 2 full chapters, and its 3rd chapter consists of only 1 verse, Haggai 2:23, depending on how chapters are divided in translations. 10. Which book of the Bible is the only one written entirely as a prayer? Lamentations, Philemon, Jonah, Habakkuk. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Habakkuk. Habakkuk is structured as a dialogue between the prophet and God, making it a unique book that is essentially a written prayer. 11. Which book contains the longest single prophecy about Jesus in the Old Testament? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah. Isaiah 53 contains the most detailed prophecy about Jesus' suffering, death, and resurrection, written over 700 years before Christ. 12. What is the only book in the Bible that begins with a genealogy? Matthew, 1 Chronicles, Luke, Genesis. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Matthew. Matthew 1 starts with the genealogy of Jesus, tracing his lineage back to Abraham to show his fulfillment of the messianic promise. 13. Which book of the Bible is quoted the most in the New Testament? Isaiah, Deuteronomy, Genesis, Psalms. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Psalms. Psalms is the most quoted Old Testament book in the New Testament with over 100 references. Many of these quotes point to Jesus as the Messiah. 14. What is the only book in the Bible that contains two chapters that are almost identical? 2 Kings, Psalms, 2 Samuel, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Psalms. Psalms 14 and 53 are nearly identical with only slight variations in wording. Both describe human sinfulness and God's judgment. 15. Which book of the Bible contains the longest personal letter? Romans, 1 Corinthians, Philemon, 2 John. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Romans. Romans is the longest letter in the Bible, written by Paul to the Christians in Rome. It contains deep theological teachings. 16. Which book of the Bible contains a prophecy about Alexander the Great? Daniel, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 8:5-8 prophesies about a mighty Greek king interpreted as Alexander the Great, who conquers swiftly but whose kingdom is divided after his death. 17. What book has a chapter that is an acrostic poem using the Hebrew alphabet? Proverbs, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Lamentations. Lamentations 3 is an acrostic poem where each set of 3 verses begins with a successive Hebrew letters, emphasizing its poetic structure. 18. What book contains the only passage in the Bible written in Aramaic letters? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezra. Ezra 4:8 to 6:18 and 7:12 to 26 are written in Aramaic rather than Hebrew because they record letters and decrees from Persian rulers. 19. Which book in the Bible describes a hand writing on a wall? Daniel, Exodus, Revelation, Judges. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. In Daniel 5:5, King Belshazzar sees a mysterious hand right on the wall during his feast, predicting the fall of Babylon. 20. Which book has the most direct prophecies about the second coming of Christ? Matthew, Daniel, Revelation, 1 Thessalonians. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation contains the most detailed descriptions of Christ's return, final judgment, and the establishment of the new heaven and new earth. 21. Which book of the Bible has a story where the sun stood still? Joshua, Exodus, Judges, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua. Joshua 10:13 records how God made the sun stand still so the Israelites could win a battle against the Amorites. 22. What is the only book in the Bible to mention a bald prophet being mocked by children? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 2 Kings. In 2 Kings 2:23-24, young boys mock Elisha by calling him bald-head, and he calls down a curse, after which 2 bears mauled 42 of them. 23. What is the only book in the Bible that describes an iron bed? 1 Kings, Deuteronomy, Joshua, 2 Chronicles. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 3:11 describes King Og's iron bed, measuring about 13.5 feet long, emphasizing his giant stature. 24. Which book of the Bible contains the only reference to the Apostle Paul's request for a coat? Romans, Ephesians, 2 Timothy, Philippians. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 2 Timothy. In 2 Timothy 4:13, Paul asked Timothy to bring his cloak, scrolls, and parchments, showing his personal needs while imprisoned. 25. Which book of the Bible records a king eating grass like an animal? Daniel, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. In Daniel 4:33, King Nebuchadnezzar loses his sanity and eats grass like an ox until God restores him. 26. What is the only book of the Bible that specifically mentions a unicorn or wild ox in modern translations? Job, Psalms, Isaiah, Numbers. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Psalms. Psalms 92:10 refers to a unicorn, though modern translations clarify it as a strong wild ox. 27. Which book of the Bible contains the phrase, "There is nothing new under the sun"? Proverbs, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Job. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 1:9 states, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun," emphasizing life's repetitive nature. 28. What is the only book in the Bible that mentions a tax collector climbing a tree? Luke, Mark, Matthew, John. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Luke. Luke 19:4 describes how Zacchaeus, a tax collector, climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus. 29. Which book of the Bible contains the story of a floating axe head? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 2 Kings. In 2 Kings 6:5-7, Elisha causes an iron axe head to float after a prophet loses it in the Jordan River. 30. What is the only book in the Bible that specifically mentions the Apostle Paul surviving a snake bite? Acts, Galatians, 2 Corinthians, 1 Timothy. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Acts. Acts 28 3-6 records how Paul was bitten by a viper on the island of Malta but suffered no harm, impressing the locals. 31. Which book contains the only account of a talking snake? Numbers, Exodus, Genesis, Revelation. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Genesis. In Genesis 3:1, the serpent speaks to Eve in the Garden of Eden, tempting her to eat the forbidden fruit. 32. What book of the Bible records an angel cooking food for a prophet? First Kings, Judges, Daniel, 2 Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 Kings. In 1 Kings 19, 5-7, an angel provided Elijah with bread and water while he flees into the wilderness. 33. What book describes a woman killing a man by driving a tent peg through his head? Joshua, Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judges. Judges 4:21 describes how Jael killed Sisera by hammering a tent peg through his temple while he was sleeping. 34. Which book contains the story of a prophet calling down fire from heaven? First Kings, Isaiah, Exodus, 2 Chronicles. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 Kings. In 1 Kings 18:36-38, Elijah calls on fire from heaven to consume a sacrifice, proving that the Lord is a true God. 35. What book of the Bible records a man wrestling with God? Exodus, Job, 1 Samuel, Genesis. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Genesis. Genesis 32:24-28 describes how Jacob wrestles with a divine figure, often interpreted as God or an angel, and is renamed Israel. 36. Which book contains the only story of a king being eaten by worms? Acts, 1 Chronicles, 2 Kings, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Acts. Acts 12:23 records how King Herod Agrippa was struck down by an angel and eaten by worms because he did not give glory to God. 37. What book of the Bible contains a command not to boil a young goat in its mother's milk? Numbers, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Exodus. Exodus 23:19 states, "Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk." This command is also repeated in Deuteronomy 14:21 and is the basis for Jewish dietary laws prohibiting mixed meat and dairy. 38. Which book contains the only account of Jesus writing something? Matthew, Luke, Mark, John. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is John. John 8:6-8 describes Jesus writing on the ground while responding to the Pharisees who brought a woman caught in adultery. The content of what he wrote remains unknown. 39. What is the only book of the Bible that mentions a left-handed warrior? Joshua, 2 Kings, Judges, 1 Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judges. Judges 3:15 describes Ehud, a left-handed judge of Israel who assassinated King Eglon of Moab using a concealed dagger. 40. What book contains a story about a floating basket carrying a baby? Genesis, Exodus, Ruth, 1 Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Exodus. Exodus 2:3 records how Moses' mother placed him in a basket in the Nile River to protect him from Pharaoh's decree to kill Hebrew baby boys. 41. Which book records a story about a man's hair giving him strength? 1 Samuel, Judges, Leviticus, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judges. Judges 16:17 tells how Samson's long hair was the source of his strength because of his Nazarite vow to God. 42. What book contains the story of a talking statue that causes people to worship it? Exodus, Daniel, Revelation, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 13:15 describes how the beast's image is given the ability to speak and demand worship, leading to the persecution of those who refuse. 43. Which book records a story where a man is commanded to cook his food over human dung? Ezekiel, Numbers, Leviticus, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4:12-15 records how God initially told Ezekiel to cook his food over human dung as a symbol of Israel's coming defilement, but after Ezekiel's plea, God allowed him to use cow dung instead. 44. What is the only book in the Old Testament that has a vision of a scroll being eaten? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 3:1-3 describes the prophet eating a scroll that tasted as sweet as honey, symbolizing his role in delivering God's message. 45. Which book contains a prophecy about people buying and selling with a mark on their forehead or hand? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 13:16-17 describes how the mark of the beast is required for people to buy or sell, a prophecy often debated in Christian eschatology. 46. What book of the Bible describes a prophet being taken to heaven in a whirlwind? Isaiah, 2 Kings, 1 Samuel, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 2 Kings. 2 Kings 2:11 describes how Elijah was taken to heaven in a whirlwind, accompanied by a chariot of fire, making him one of the few biblical figures who did not experience death. 47. Which of these books contains a story of a king who had a banquet using sacred temple vessels? 2 Chronicles, Nehemiah, Ezra, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 5:1-4 records how King Belshazzar of Babylon used sacred temple vessels for his banquet, leading to the appearance of the mysterious handwriting on the wall. 48. Which book in the Bible contains a prophecy about the Messiah riding on a donkey? Isaiah, Micah, Zechariah, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 9:9 prophesies that the Messiah will come riding on a donkey, which was fulfilled when Jesus entered Jerusalem in Matthew 21:5. 49. What book contains a story where a king had a dream about a great statue with a head of gold? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 2:31-35 describes King Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a statue representing different kingdoms, which Daniel interprets as a prophecy of world empires. 50. What book describes a vision of a great tree that was cut down? Psalms, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 4:10 to 26 records a vision of a giant tree being cut down, symbolizing King Nebuchadnezzar's humiliation and restoration. 51. Which book of the Bible contains a prophecy about the Valley of Decision? Zephaniah, Joel, Amos, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joel. Joel 3:14 refers to the Valley of Decision, describing a future time of judgment when nations will be gathered before God. 52. What book of the Bible describes a woman giving birth while being pursued by a dragon? Daniel, Jeremiah, Revelation, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 12:1 to 6 describes a vision of a woman giving birth while being pursued by a dragon, symbolizing the conflict between Christ and Satan. 3. 53. What book of the Bible describes God speaking to someone out of a whirlwind? 2 Kings, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Job. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Job. Job 38:1 states, "Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm," marking the moment when God responds to Job's questions. 54. Which book contains a story about the vision of four beasts coming out of the sea? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 7:1 to 8 describes a vision of four beasts representing different world empires, a prophecy of future kingdoms. 55. Which book of the Bible describes a prophet seeing a vision of a wheel within a wheel? Zechariah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 1:15 to 21 describes a mysterious vision of wheels within wheels, accompanied by heavenly creatures, symbolizing God's divine presence and movement. 56. What book contains the only biblical story of a fish swallowing a man? Matthew, Exodus, Jonah, Job. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jonah. Jonah 1:17 says, "Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights." 57. What book contains a vision of a flying scroll? Isaiah, Zechariah, Jeremiah, Obadiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 5:1 to 2 describes a vision of a flying scroll, symbolizing judgment against those who steal and swear falsely. 58. Which book in the Bible records a prophecy of a lion with eagle's wings? Hosea, Revelation, Daniel, Amos. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 7:4 describes a vision of a lion with eagle's wings, representing the Babylonian Empire. 59. What book contains the vision of a little horn growing and speaking boastfully? Revelation, Daniel, Isaiah, Lamentations. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 7:8 describes a little horn that speaks arrogantly and represents an oppressive kingdom in biblical prophecy. 60. Which book records a prophet seeing a vision of a man with a measuring line? Habakkuk, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 2 1 to 2 describes a vision of a man measuring Jerusalem, symbolizing God's future restoration of the city. 61. What book in the Bible contains a song sung by a woman after a miraculous birth? Ruth, Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel 2 1 to 10 records Hannah's song of praise after God blesses her with a son, Samuel, following years of infertility. 62. Which book contains the phrase, I am the Alpha and the Omega? Romans, Revelation, John, Hebrews. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 22:13 states, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end, emphasizing Christ's eternal nature. 63. What book contains a vision of a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns? Daniel, Isaiah, Revelation, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 13:1 describes a beast rising from the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, symbolizing an end times kingdom. 64. Which book contains the phrase, the joy of the Lord is your strength? Psalms, Nehemiah, Isaiah, Proverbs. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nehemiah. Nehemiah 8:10 says, do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength, encouraging the Israelites during the rebuilding of Jerusalem. 65. What book of the Bible describes a prophet seeing 4 chariots coming from between 2 bronze mountains? Ezekiel, Zechariah, Daniel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 6 1 to 3 describes a vision of 4 chariots, each with different colored horses, symbolizing God's judgment and action on the earth. 66. Which book of the Bible contains the only reference to the fruit of the Spirit? Romans, Philemon, Philippians, Galatians. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Galatians. Galatians 5:22 to 23 lists the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. 67. Which book of the Bible describes a prophet lying on his side for over a year as a symbolic act? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Amos. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4 4 to 6 describes how Ezekiel lay on his left side for 390 days and his right side for 40 days to symbolize Israel's and Judah's punishment. 68. What book of the Bible contains the phrase, can a leopard change its spots? Jeremiah, Psalms, Proverbs, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jeremiah. Jeremiah 13:23 says, can an Ethiopian change his skin or a leopard its spots? Neither can you do good who are accustomed to doing evil. 69. Which book of the New Testament mentions a scroll being eaten? John, Revelation, Hebrews, Galatians. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 10 9 to 10 describes John eating a small scroll that was sweet in his mouth but bitter in his stomach, symbolizing prophecy. 70. What is the only book of the Bible that begins with the revelation of Jesus Christ? John, Malachi, Isaiah, Revelation. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 1:1 begins with the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. 71. Which book of the Bible contains a story about a king who stretched out his hand and had it withered? First Chronicles, First Kings, Second Chronicles, Second Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is First Kings. First Kings 13:4 describes King Jeroboam stretching out his hand to seize a prophet, but his hand withered instantly as a sign from God. 72. Which book of the Bible contains a reference to a flying woman in a basket? Revelation, Ezekiel, Zechariah, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 5:7-9 describes a vision of a woman in a basket being carried away by two women with wings, symbolizing wickedness being removed from Israel. 73. Which book of the Bible describes the sun moving backward as a sign from God? Joshua, Isaiah, 2 Kings, Judges. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abraham. 2 Kings 20:9-11 describes how God made the sun's shadow move backward on a sundial as a sign to King Hezekiah that he would be healed. 74. What is the only book in the Bible that compares the human tongue into a fire? Proverbs, Romans, James, Psalms. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is James. James 3:6 warns, "The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body," emphasizing the power of words. 75. What book in the Bible describes a man having a vision of a ram and a goat fighting? Leviticus, Micah, Revelation, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel. Daniel 8:3-8 describes a vision of a ram and a goat symbolizing the Medo-Persian and Greek empires. 76. What book of the Bible contains the longest genealogy? Genesis, Matthew, 1 Chronicles, Numbers. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is First Chronicles. First Chronicles chapters 1-9 contains extensive genealogies, tracing Israel's lineage from Adam to post-exilic times. 77. Which book of the Bible contains the phrase, "for such a time as this"? Job, Esther, Ruth, Psalms. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Esther. Esther 4:14 records Mordecai telling Esther that she may have been placed as queen for such a time as this to save the Jews. 78. What book in the Bible records the phrase, "God is love"? 1 John, Romans, Ephesians, Hebrews. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 John. 1 John 4:8 says, "Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." This verse is central to Christian theology. 79. What is the only book in the Bible that mentions a sea of glass? Ezekiel, Malachi, Revelation, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Revelation. Revelation 4:6 describes a sea of glass clear as crystal before God's throne, symbolizing purity and divine majesty. 80. What book contains the phrase, "a time to be born and a time to die"? Proverbs, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Matthew. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 3:2 states, "A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot," emphasizing the seasons of life. And there you have it. How well did you do? Tally your score and post in the comments. And don't forget to share this quiz with your family and friends. See you in the next one. God bless.